create ambiguity. You know, is it going to be a rush? Could he make it look like a rush, but actually it's just going to be some kind of a macro play or a weird tech switch? I don't think there's a world where Coffee is going to play a straight-up head-to-head, toe-to-toe game and ever out-muscle Serral.
Yeah, no one really can do that. It's not a thing that you really generally tend to see. So we'll see what his plan is. Like, he's already, you know, playing relatively safe. He sends down his SCV just to make sure that this is not some sort of pool first Lings running around type of thing. And now has the Reaper down here. You know, the good old Reaper dance. Let's damage a few Lings. And, you know, pretty standard openers so far. But nothing is standing out from Coffee making me think like, oh, wow, I can't believe he's doing this.
The defining feature of Serral, it really is the perfect play, which might sound cliche when you've got the best player, but it's almost impossible to ever find the moment where there is the opening where you can eke out that extra damage, where you can thread that needle and get the perfect play and maybe change the course of the game. So it's tough. I mean, Zerg as a race sort of functions on growth balanced with a degree of safety. You try to overgrow, then you lose to the push, right? But I think no one in the world has ever done it better than Serral.
Yeah, he treads that line of safety, but optimization better than everyone by a good margin. Yeah, it's kind of wild to see, because when you can actually tread that, where you're basically being as greedy as you can be while being like basically completely safe the whole time, really the way to beat them that they were kind of alluding to is you need to make him make a mistake. Right? Which is why they're talking over on the desk about, like, oh, deny the scouting and, you know, make it look like an all-in and then go greedy and then do like a later all-in, that type of thing. What that really is you're trying to force him into a mistake, which is hard to do because Serral's decision-making is probably the most consistent out of all of the pros as well.
Right. I guess the idea when you do a funny opening is you're trying to force them to pull the wrong lever in the tech tree, right?
Yeah.
To over-drone or, you know, maybe overling, something like that. Now, in this game, it's double eBay. This is a fairly straightforward opener. We do have one Banshee being produced right now, but, you know, there's nothing remarkably creative about Coffee's play. Now, that's not wrong. It's just not really what we expected going into this best of 5.
Well, it's cool to see, you know, he's going Banshee Hellion, which is very safe and can do some decent harassment, and going double eBay rather quickly with this as well, with that third command center finished up in the main base. So, you know, he's doing a lot of things at once, and Serral is making a group of roaches here, has some speedlings out on the map as well. But, you know, with the Banshees out, with the fact that he has some Hellions, I think that everything Coffee's doing is going to be all right. Like, I like the opener.
Yeah, no, it looks fine for now. 7 roaches being produced. The Hellion's going to poke out here as Serral is intent to continue to creep out and grow on the map. 12 Lings behind the roaches here.
Yeah, no, he's getting ready for some aggression for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Viking going around a little bit. Coffee's scouting a lot on the map, so he's going to have a pretty decent idea of what's going on. He did not even try to take that third base yet, so that's kind of good for him. And you know what? If he can just kind of block what Serral's doing, like, on paper, I like his build much better than what Serral has here. Unless, of course, Serral gets a bunch of damage, which is a possibility, of course.
Yeah, so the roaches are going to be the damage dealers. The Lings can tank a little bit. They can try to come into certain sides. The SCV pull is going to come down. The Lings come through the side here. A pretty good pull so far here from Coffee.
Where are those Banshees at right now?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Oh, back here.
Well, that's good. Picking off some of the Ravagers right there, so that's kind of nice. But Serral just kind of flooding up the ramp right now against Coffee, who has tried to play it greedily. Let's see if he's able to hold on. He's already lost a lot of SCVs here, unfortunately. Now, the worker count for Serral is not particularly high. This is a pretty sharp all-in from him as well. But he's killed so many workers that he looks like the macro player.
Yeah, I think Coffee's certainly not going to die here. We see that Serral is droning up. But the question is, has this damage been maybe not fatal, but enough of a blow to his whole setup that he'll never be able to recover? You know, we talk about how Serral never really missteps, and so when he does a rush like that, he's basically making the game very, very easy for himself later on.
Yeah. Well, you know, it is triple command center, so he can get his SCV count back up for sure. Like, he can kind of recover in that way. I think another thing that's kind of hidden that went wrong here is during that defense, his armory wasn't made. right? So even though he got the very quick upgrades, his 2-2 is not going to be on the time plane that he wanted it on, right?
That's right.
So that's a little bit painful. He did start their armory after everything was held, after 1-1 has already been done for a while. So Serral's not going to catch up in upgrades, but, you know, he's working towards that.
Yeah, when that armory finishes, he can start that up. But it's another problem. It's another part of the race that he's just behind on. You can see Serral's upgrades are continuing to come along right now. Really good growth on the map. The creep spread is looking very nice. There is going to be an opportunity here for Coffee to try to come out on the map. He's got the Banshee harassing the hatchery at 6 o'clock, but he's also pushing with these Marines and medevacs. But there's just enough on the ground here for Serral that really Coffee can't ever be... Oh my god, he gets that Banshee. Yeah, Coffee can't ever really be present anywhere as long as Serral can come and send whatever he needs to that area to shut down whatever harass is occurring.
Well, when you have creep spread this good, it is pretty hard for Terran to get in there and force the cancels on these hatches, especially with how many units he lost with that hold. Now, a little boost into the main base. It's not that many Marines. It's like 9 Marines or something with 2 medevacs. So, you know, he's kind of, you know, keeping Serral like a little bit busy, but the likelihood of him finding real damage here is almost 0.
And Coffee taking his third base. I think there's a chance Serral just runs in there and forces that to lift again. We do have a harass over here. It seems like the Queen is going to be picked off, but this is a naked expansion. There's no way to really protect this. He will lift. He'll lose a couple SCVs in the process. It doesn't seem like there's enough Ravagers that he can kind of pelt that over and over to kill it off. But in fact, there's not even really enough defense over here to just protect a full-on attack up in the front. He's got enough Ravagers that he can triple shot that tank over there on the corner.
Yeah, this is about it for Coffee. I mean, he's been down at half the supply of Serral for a while now. He tried to recover. I don't hate the build order he did, right? Like, I think it was a fine one to try, but Serral got that punish off just so brutally, and GG is called. Serral going to take game 1.
I mean, it was a game where the timing attack there from Serral worked out perfectly. Coffee was a little bit light on the defenses, wasn't able to defend his position well enough to prevent the Lings from them getting into the main, killing so many SCVs. And the result is that you have a completely dysfunctional economy where Serral is eons ahead.
Yeah, so let's go ahead, take a look at these highlights. And yeah, this push coming in, right? The Banshees were somewhere behind here, I think, picking on the Roaches that were turning into Ravagers, that type of thing. He does land. You can notice that he didn't have like a full wall or anything here, so that definitely played part. Maybe he should have thought about getting that wall. But yeah, it's just a bit too much damage, right? Losing, I think he ends up losing like 26 SCVs or something. It's too much.
And this is going to be the final attack here. We had some harass, but, you know, this attack, you can look at it and say, oh, how would you defend here? It doesn't really matter because this is a byproduct of the damage that was done in the previous highlight that we saw over there.
Yeah.
When you can't, you know, ever muster the kind of army to both attack and defend, you're just never going to win the game. We see with the next flood of Roaches coming in here now, the game is over.
Yeah, kind of a straightforward game overall. At least we got to see what Coffee had planned. It was more towards greed than anything else. I think it's... I like the championship quality of Serral there, where he can go up against the player who is likely the weakest in the tournament and just pull it all in. Bam, yeah. Let's go. Yeah. I have like 45 drones. Let's just make nothing but Roach and Ling and send it across the map. Because if that gets held really cleanly, like let's say you never went 3rd Command Center, double eBay, Serral's going to be in trouble at that point.
I think it's a very straightforward, safe build to use. You got to think of that not just as a build order to beat the opponent, but really to get through this part of the tournament. There's nothing fundamentally creative or crazy about what Serral did, but it's kind of like as a game where one player is just far better than the other. We talked before about Coffee perhaps going for a style of play that would allow him to maybe be a bit more deceptive. As a straight-up head-to-head game is likely to be one that would just be impossible to win. We saw him try that in Game 1, as in he tried a kind of textbook TVZ game and it backfired. Will he be a little bit more creative, a little bit more tricky this time around?
I don't know. Maybe it's time to pull out some cheese, Tasteless.
I am very much for the cheese here. In the bottom right, in the red, he is Coffee. And in the top left, in the blue, it is Serral. right now with a 1-0 lead. Expected, of course, but can Coffee concoct some kind of plan to, start to even this out?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of like tricky cheese. Whether that's, well, obviously he's not going to be going for proxy barracks or something this game. As long as it's not a Hellbat all in, because that's the most predictable thing for a lesser player to do to a stronger player and lose with.
Yeah, and easy to stop if you're, able to micro.
Yeah, that's not a very good win rate on that one. Or maybe he just decides, you know what? I don't think that Serral will pull a rush like that twice. Maybe we go greedy here and try to hit that more mid-game timing attack. But, I'm sure Coffee has put plenty of thought into this. And, at least chosen strategies he thinks give him some chance.
Now, Serral in that last game did go for a timing attack. I'm not sure if he sized up something in Coffee's placement or behavior, like the lack of a wall in at the second base. I don't know if that's what prompted him to do it, or if it was just a move where he thought, yeah, he's probably going to skimp a little bit here. Maybe get something too early, like the eBays or something like that, and punish him that way. But again, weirdly, and stay with me on this idea if this makes sense, when you're against someone who is considered so much better than you, it does feel like the pressure almost comes off a little bit in Coffee's position, because everybody is sort of expecting Serral to move past this, and this should be, for sure, in fact, one of the less remarkable matches in this phase of the bracket. But that it can kind of be a benefit when you're the underdog that much, is you can kind of relax and just try your thing, right?
Yeah, having no expectation is one of the best ways to put out your best games, right?
Yeah.
It's just like the pressure does go away. So, I think everyone that plays StarCraft, everyone that watches StarCraft, respects just the ridiculous strength that Serral has. And the favorite of all these tournaments. So, I think he's probably going to put out basically his best play. But the thing is he actually capable of winning against Serral?
Right. And the tough part is that in a best of 5.
That was a sick gap jump right there.
Yeah. Best of 5, you really have to have a pretty big range of play here to win. It does feel like a best of 3. You can kind of sneak out. We've got the third command center down here. Let's see what branch of build order from here he's going to go for. But
looks really similar to last game.
Yeah, and maybe Coffee misstepped. We are always looking big picture in the early game. Sometimes we can miss maybe, I don't know, a forgotten depot or a late add-on, something like that. And maybe he just wants to try.
He had no wall that last game. All up, it gives you precious seconds. You can do a little bit of repair. Maybe you can get a bunker up, something like that. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him do basically the same thing and maybe trying to put a few more of the buildings at the front. Like if you're going to go double eBay, let's put them at the front, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you might lose them. It might not turn out
that
well.
could backfire in its own way, right? You're like, well, I didn't die to the rush, but I'll never win with a push. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, just mix it up, change things around a little bit. We've got the Overlord over here on the far right side. It's going to be angled to try to come in and see what is going on here. It should spot the third command center pretty quickly, and the third command center is the only thing you really need to see, right? Obviously, it'd be perfect to see all the buildings. I don't think he saw that. Yeah, he does not.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of crazy.
Doesn't see anything there.
He could have gone maybe like a little bit further over, and I think he would have spotted it, but, a risk he didn't want to take.
And it is the double eBay here once again, so it looks very, very similar to what we saw previously. There is a Roach Warren on the way here. Look at that, the 3 Queens pushing back the 2 Hellions once again. I'm getting some deja vu.
Yeah. Well, for Coffee's sake, I hope that, he's got, at least as far as executes and builds, he's got what he wants to bring here. The 4 Hellions are going to roam now. They're going to try to clean up any stray creep tumors that we see. 1-1 coming along right now for Coffee.
Yeah, no big plume of roaches here for Serral. So, this is Coffee kind of getting away with his build order overall. Like, Serral is just growing his economy. So, this puts, Coffee's build is basically getting what it wanted. He's not under attack. He's getting plenty of SCVs. He's getting his upgrades super, super fast. Look at this, adding 4 racks right now. I'm sure he'll throw up his armory on time this game.
And this is going to be
keep those upgrades going forward.
Yeah, sorry to run over you there for a second. This is going to be the moment where we're going to have Coffee really shoot his shot, like we were talking about before. He's going to be the one who's going to be making the moves, and Serral's going to have to be defending. Now, Serral is sort of the god of defense, right? And is usually able to parry any move that happens on the board here. The 2 Banshees are going to come up here onto the side. It's going to be deflected by the Queen as well as the Spore Crawler there, so no damage done. Remember, when you've got the Banshees on the map, there's no way to repair or heal them, so any little bit of damage is going to make them you know, a lot more squishy the next time they try to dive in. And so far, Coffee hasn't really done much of anything at all.
No, not too much, but he has added a lot of barracks. Like a lot. 8 barracks at this point.
Yeah.
So that is some production right there. Yeah, 8 barracks. So yeah, he's going to be massing up really, really heavily. I do want to see him nail out this 2-2, but his armory is slightly late here. So I feel like, oh man, you know, this is almost single player right now. We got to nail this, Coffee. If we're going to take down Serral here in game number 2, let's get that 3rd base going. Let's get that macro going. No supply blocks. Get 2-2 immediately. Because if there's going to be a window to win, it's going to be small.
That's right. And it seems like this is really where the buildup is. He wants to try to push out. He wants to hit right at this moment and shut the game down. So I think if there's a game that Coffee wins, it should be this game. It's going to be tough, but we'll see if the lead-up brings us there.
Well, he's going to get his 2-2 started here momentarily. Again, just slightly late from 4. He's cleaning out some of the creep. I think that that's about as hard as you want to go. Like, obviously move these around and do that some more. But I don't want to see the Medivacs, like, super dive in. Because I think every single little bit of supply is going to be important for this push, right? Like, he is focusing really heavy on Marine Marauder. We're going to have some Siege Tanks mixed in there too, yes. But if he's not very close to maxed as 2-2 finishes, I don't know if the push has a chance.
Okay, gets 3 drones over there. He hasn't lost that many Hellions. You know, with the Banshees and the Hellions, you can pair them with the push if you want. He's going to try to come down here from the side. It looks like he can actually snipe these Ravagers. He's going to take out 2 and even 3. Pick up and leave. I got to say, nice little harass there from Coffee. Looking very good. He's up to 141 supply to the 160, I guess 171 now of Serral.
This is really well done. You're right. Like, this harassment, you know, he's hit in a few different locations and, you know, running away as soon as it is not something that's going to work out for him. Like, I really like it. I think he's playing out a beautiful looking game right now. Like, it's all going kind of according to his plan. He's not overcommitting anywhere. He's macroing pretty cleanly. Like, obviously, Serral has a lot right now. He's getting Adrenaline. He has his Hive. He's getting plus 1 melee. But, you know, we're going to be up 2 full upgrades for Coffee when he moves out with his full army.
Okay.
And he should be maxed as well.
That's right.
As long as he doesn't throw anything.
Really nice pickups here. Coffee really not missing a beat. This is a much better looking game overall. As long as he doesn't overextend, he's going to drop these Marines down here now. And he does snipe that 1 Queen over there. He's going to barely miss the 2nd one. Nice transfuses here from Serral. He does ultimately get 2, losing 1 medevac, although a nearly full one escapes.
Yeah, I'm a fan, man. I think he's playing a really, really nice game. Now, Ultralisk Caverner's on the way, but the push will decide the game, I think, well before we have any Ultras out, right? So this hold is going to be basically Ling Bane, and oh my god, rolling in so quickly here. He sieges a lot of tanks. This is right before 2-2 is done. So this is what we would call an anti-timing here from Coffee. Like 2-2 is literally like less than 30 seconds from finish. Now, he might have this in his head that this is when he moves because his armory was late.
Yeah,
right?
That's actually a good point.
Because this is about, see how this is finishing right now? But the thing is, the big part of the engagement already occurred. If he has 2 more upgrades for that, it certainly looks different from what we just saw. So definitely a bit of a blunder here from Coffee.
Yeah, I think he might have been going through the motions a little bit and didn't really let the game hit its own marks, right?
Yes.
I think he was comfortable. He was ready to push. He had the army probably size-wise that you want at that moment, but didn't really appreciate the rhythm inside of his own game. You have to let those upgrades finish, or you are basically attacking at the worst moment possible in that frame of time.
If his armory was on time, that was basically exactly when that 2-2 would have finished. So I'm actually feeling pretty bad for him. It feels like it's just so well practiced that he knows when to move, but the armory was slightly late. So now we're in this situation where, like, okay, we've started 3-3, but you know, this doesn't feel good for him anymore, right? Serral's sitting here, easy peasy 5 bases, getting his ultras out. You know, he's blocked everything pretty well so far. The advantages that Coffee worked up to just weren't utilized.
And now we get one of these kind of quiet, awkward games post timing push fail, right? It's a lot of groups of medevacs roaming around, usually not doing that much, especially Serral. Once he shuts down the push, he immediately repositions to stop anything that could allow the Terran to get further ahead. It is 3-base Terran, which is still, you know, it's threatening, but 4 bases would have been a lot better. Basically, this whole game was built up for the, you know, big climactic attack with the 2-2 that would hopefully swing the game, and it does seem like, you know, maybe the pressure really got to Coffee here.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Well, certainly that was not the execution he was looking for in the timing attack. He's still doing some harassment, which, you know, it doesn't look too bad, but it's not like it's really gaining him anything. And if you look at what he's going for, like, we don't see Ghost, we see a second factory, we see like 1 Liberator being produced. Yeah, Serral's just coming in and looking for a kill at this point.
Yeah, and this should be Serral closing this out. There's really no world where a 4th base can be acquired. There is a wall-in over here. I don't think if he gets behind the wall-in, in fact, he won't even get he won't even be able to seal that off, no matter how many depots are lined up. There it is, GG! Serral manages to take game 2 pretty easily. We can talk about how great Serral is, how hard he is to beat, but a lot of that comes down to the fact that Coffee attacked at literally the worst moment. It was right before his 2 upgrades had finished.
Yeah, he was like 30 seconds off on that. Like, he started the engage, he started the move out, and it was just before the 2-2 was ready. And this was meant to be a 2-2 timing push around max supply, which is a very common build. And if he had waited, like, look at this. All of this, he would have been up 1-1 more.
Yeah, you could
watch.
watch.
It makes such a difference, guys.
you could watch over here this attack, and it's failing. But what you really want to look at is the top left side of the screen and the 2 upgrades coming along. Watch how small the Terran's army is. Watch as Serral retreats. Well, I guess we're not going to see it, but the upgrades didn't finish just then. And then Serral attacks in again, this time right before 3-3 finishes. Yeah. Although, again, this attack a lot less significant in the grand scheme of the game. This is basically Serral.
The game was decided.
Yeah, Serral finishing his lunch right here.
Yeah. So, you know, I think Coffee, he chose a good build. It was like basically the same as game number 1, but he didn't get attacked. It looked very powerful. He had the right type of things going on, and then just moved out a little bit too early. So, you know, obviously a blunder on his side, and Serral just picks up the win. You're not going to beat him with an anti-timing.
We had game 1, basically a layup here from Serral. He did his timing attack. It was a fairly standard timing attack you see in the game. Lings with roaches behind them to do enough damage to get in and kill the workers. Coffee unable to, you know, deal with that in any way, and is crippled in game 1, ultimately closed out. In game 2, we see Coffee fumble.
Yeah.
Really, you got to take it from his perspective if you're going to understand that game. It's less about analyzing Serral's perfect play and more about appreciating the critical mistakes that Coffee made that costed him the game.
And it's not that he would have just won or something for free. Like, if the 2-2 had finished, Serral still may win that game. But the entire power of what he was doing disappeared when he moved out like that. So, unfortunate there from Coffee, but now into game number 3.
Game 3 it is in the top right in the lead, 2-0. It is Serral. And in the bottom left in the red, he needs to have a reverse sweep. It is Coffee.
All right. Do you think he should do the same thing as before?
I don't know.
Just the greedy 3cc, Banshee, Hellion, fast upgrades, 3-base, max 2-2 timing. Like, it's a good build. It's strong, right? And he was actually doing most of it very, very well.
I mean, he could try. It does feel like everything's a little bit futile versus Serral, right? But, you know, a weird cheese, some kind of a deceptive play like we saw, where maybe he can do something surprising. I mean, game one, it doesn't really matter because you have to hold off what Serral did first, right? Before we even get to see what the real intentions of the Terran is. In game two, you know, it just seems like he was sort of out of his element, you know, and again, like you said, Artosis, it's not that he would have won the game had he attacked right as 2-2 finished, but at least the game would have played out the way it's supposed to.
You have to give yourself every advantage that you possibly can. It's not completely up to you whether you win, right? Your opponent has a lot of say. Serral more than most, but you do have say in how you're going to play it. And when you when you literally move out at the worst possible time, which would be right before those upgrades are done, you know, it's going to be tough. So how does he try to recover from here? Will it be that same build 3 games in a row, or does he have something up his sleeve? Has yet to be seen.
So I wouldn't be shocked if we had a third command center in this game here for Coffee. It does seem like 2-base timings are very passé at this point in time in StarCraft II. And I don't know if that's a map-dependent thing or if people just sort of figure 2-base out to the point where you're really not supposed to ever lose to it.
Yeah, I think that's just the natural evolution of RTS in general, is that the base count goes up for what you have to do and all in on, because, like, you get so much more powerful with each additional base. And, you know, when people figure out, like, oh, here's the sharp thing that happens on 2-base, once you hold a 2-base all in, dude, the game's over, right? And it's not as quick as a 1-base all in. It's not as punishing. So, yeah, I think you're right. Like, 2-base all ins are generally just not any good. And when it's a 2-base all in from Terran in these situations, I feel like more often than not, it's some sort of bad Hellbat play.
Yeah, very
it's like,
much.
oh,
often.
Man, don't be doing that. Come on.
So we're going to see the tech here from Coffee in just a little bit. He is getting a starport. There's a lot of ways you can package the game post, you know, starport add-on, factory add-on, and see where you want to settle stuff.
So why there a creep under the command center, Tasis?
Oh my God, how'd Serral do that? He's
Whoa,
so good.
He's so quick.
Wow. We've got Hellions coming out in pairs. He'll be roaming the map and trying to clean up creep as much as he can with that. The Reaper is going to be on the move here as well. You know, overall, Serral's play looking impeccable, but at the same time, I would say not that memorable. And I don't mean that as a critique, but I think it's been a fairly straightforward series from him.
Yeah.
It's been him just scanning his opponent, surveying whether it's behavior or build orders or any kind of signal he can get, and he just has the right response.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing that it's boring and non-memorable. That means he's doing the job as intended, right? And so right now, this little dive-in, Coffee going a little bit too far with the Hellion Reaper, really not getting anything done but losing the Reaper and 2 Hellions.
Yeah, he is going to get a scout over here. Serral is as well, so he's really got 2 victories in the span of, you know, a few seconds. Losing the Hellions like that's a problem. You really want to do this and keep as many around as possible because you start to lose any real momentum, any real muscle, any presence on the map because once a couple are killed off, you can have a more... Oh, my God, he's going to get inside here with these Lings and get some kills here as well.
Oof.
But, yeah, I mean, you're just going to be able to do a lot less versus Zerg because they can defend with less.
He does block these Lings, so we'll be able to catch those with the Hellions. But yeah, nothing going like super duper well. In fact, this is like the way that he has changed the way that he's playing from the first 2 games is that 3rd command center's a lot later and he got Cloak. Right. So is that a trade that's going to change the game dramatically for Coffee?
I feel like this game is looking very weak so far. We saw the Cloak just finish, and we saw the Banshee ping pong right out of that base when the Spore was ready to deal with him.
If the Cloak gets you some damage, or the extra Hellions that you made get you some extra damage, you can say, oh, okay, this was good. Like, we're maybe in a better position than having the 3rd command more quickly. That hasn't been the case thus far.
Okay, so he's going to try to hit this hatchery up here. Now, this hatchery is going to be the focal point of a push if we have one that comes out pretty early. Coffee doesn't have to push, of course. Coffee can just stay back and keep macroing and taking bases, but I would be surprised if he does that. Did he deny that?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that hatchery's forced to restart. Actually, a pretty nice little victory there.
Yeah. That's nice.
Might not look like much, but delaying the drones being sent to the fourth base really does delay the whole rippling of economic growth throughout the entire game.
Pulls those Banshees back, keeps those alive. He did lose a few more Hellions there. Going to bring those back for a repair as well. Starting to get his macro really flowing here. Also, Serral continuing to produce some roaches, getting those roach upgrades, roach speed as well. Infestation pit here on the way, as well as a baneling nest being started. So pretty standard stuff overall here on both sides.
Yeah, Serral opening up the map over here, just clearing out these rocks, mining some purple gas. They're going to be long-distance mining. Things a little bit off rhythm here for Serral, but he's doing a good job of overall catching up. Not a crazy game so far. Terran just continuing to power up. We're at about 101 supply to 138. This is a normal supply range distance for TVZ right now. Zerg is always going to be a little bit further ahead. We've got upgrades for, in this case, 1-1 finishing up right now here for Terran, so this would be a very healthy time to try to poke out on the map, to try to clean up some creep, to try to get the Zerg to retract their position, even if just a little bit.
Yeah, and he will get a few tumors here and there, but, you know, Serral does have that nice supply lead, so should have enough to kind of parry everything, push it all back. Meanwhile, Hive is about halfway done. That armory finishing up. Not perfectly lined up with 1-1, but he'll get that 2-2 going now. And continually making siege tanks throughout this, which are going to be very, very important going forward.
Okay, the Banshees are going to clean up this queen. Oh, no, excuse me, I spoke too soon. The queen's going to be saved. But maybe for just a second, but it's going to be the Banshee that actually ends up going down. Again, Serral able to lash out at the Terran in all these different positions. All these moments are going to build up into one big push from the Terran. It's going to be all about who can win these exchanges and maybe change the balance a little bit more to where the Terran's push can come out and maybe overpower the Zerg. But again, Serral is the best at taking these fights in the whole world.
Yeah, he is very good defensively on his own creep here. And the thing is, I don't see a timing attack that's really lining up. Like, in general, 2-2 is just a popular time to move as Terran, right? Like, you're generally right around max supply at 2-2 finishing, and it's like 3-3 takes so long that it doesn't really make sense. Like, you need to put some sort of pressure. But right now, starts another command center. I like it. Okay, so he's not, like, really dedicating himself to an all-or-nothing maneuver. You know, the 4 medevacs kind of flying around, not sure exactly what they'll be able to get done. Throwing down a macro hatch. Really like seeing that there, making sure that he's going to be able to produce nonstop.
And, you know, it's just Serral growing. He's maxed out now, which means the minerals, the gas are going to start to pile up. It's going to be all about finishing all the different text infrastructure you can get, getting the creep spread as wide out as you possibly can, taking as many more bases will allow you to do. And then when you get this much supply banked up, you get a unique opportunity, which is that you can start to attack into locations and trade out. And while the Terran and the Zerg are both going to lose quite a bit, the Zerg can remax usually immediately by the amount of larvae they banked up, the resources in both gas and minerals. The Zerg has deep pockets.
For sure. Now, Coffee is still just kind of running around doing a little bit of harassment. You can see he's really not getting too much done, and there are Vipers out there, so kind of easy to punish. Serral with a very fluid army running around right now, cleaning this all up. Love seeing the parasitic bombs, one of my favorite moves late game from Zerg there to reduce those medevacs. But yeah, the 2-2 is finished. We have another factory being started here from Coffee. 170 supply. I don't think that this is... Honestly, I don't think this is good push timing, but it's good timing to move into this position for a 4th base. I'd like to see him just kind of siege up and max out before he really does anything big.
I like this little Liberator over here. Doing a little bit of extra damage on these drones. A big fight over here in the middle of the map, though. The Banelings are going to come forward. The tanks are in the back, and they're not able to be hit. And so that's a big victory there for Coffee. Yeah. Serral actually bleeding off a lot of those units as they have to run around those orange trees, not able to get away as quickly. Coffee needs to take this moment to try to advance his position, and that's exactly what he's doing. 2 more siege tanks leap forward, and he's getting closer and closer to this pivotal base here in the middle of the map.
Yeah, he's got to be careful. He took a great position there for that fight and got some big volleys that made Serral turn around, but he's got to know that Serral is basically like forever maxed at this point. So be careful, set up these positions well. Nice yoink on that siege tank. None of the tanks really in range at the moment. Does he continue to push them forward and risk them being abducted by these Vipers?
Okay, we're going to have another push come in here. I don't know, man. Coffee's position is pretty good. It seems like it's a tough spot to get in, especially with the Banelings. You have to wind around that path, and this is where the pressure can really be built up. Coffee is going to just sprinkle Marines down here. If Serral tries to come in here and deny it, he picks them right back up and pulls away. He's just got to make sure he can dodge those corrosive bile shots, and he's already been hit by a couple.
Yeah, I really like this idea from Coffee, but the abducts are getting tanks that are putting that extra heavy pressure on. I don't know. Can he get this fourth base? It kind of feels like he needs to. Also, look at Coffee's supply continuing to close that gap.
An attack comes over here from above, hitting this position, and this might be the moment that Serral can strike back. He's been able to hit from the top and the right, which allows him to close in on these tanks. And the tanks are really the foothold of this entire thing. When he gets that last tank, he retreats because he doesn't have any more threats for the time being. It's up to Serral to come back, lick his wounds, and try to build up. He's doing a great job. He's taking a base at the very far bottom right side of the map. And Coffee is kind of stuck in his quadrant.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, actually, if you look at this production tab where it's 2 tanks and 2 Liberators at a time, right? So he's not really like bending into ghosts or anything like that. Oh, nice little Baneling run by as well. Serral doesn't forget anything, does he? But, you know, the fact that he's focusing really heavily on the tanks and on the Liberators, you know, maybe he can still make a composition that's going to be able to fight here against Serral, who's getting into Ultras.
Yeah, Serral, when he gets those Ultras, that's where he has a lot more power on the map. And I love these small counterattacks. It really forces you to have, for instance, these Liberators or siege tanks or even a couple Marines back here. Oh, and while we see that, another attack comes in over here. He's going to take out 3 tanks back-to-back immediately. I think even getting the Liberator as well.
Yeah, it looks like he does get pushed back, but Serral's just poking the edges right now. He's waiting for Ultra speed. He's waiting for these Ultras to make as well, putting some harassment on. You know, Coffee's doing well. He's on 4 bases. He's keeping a high supply. His economy hasn't really been super hindered at all this game, other than a little bit of Baneling harassment. But, you know, Serral, as he gets up towards these Ultras, like, he is going to be able to take a very good engagement. And will Coffee have enough tanks and Liberators at that time to hold him back?
That's the real question here. The Ultras are going to come up now. And it seems like this position is getting squishier and squishier every attack that comes in. A couple more tanks are going to be able to set up, so I don't think Serral can get all the way in here now, but there's 44 more Zerglings as well as 2 more Ultras coming. Serral dives in once more.
Oh, man. The parasitic bomb's going down as well over here. A lot of biles being thrown out with these Ultras kind of trailing behind. And, you know, Coffee continues to hold, but we're watching him sit down 50, 60 supply oftentimes here. Just now really getting into some of these vehicle upgrades, which that does feel a little bit late. Like if you're going to be producing 2 factory siege tanks this long, maybe you should have started that a bit earlier. You know, the Ghost Academy coming up now. So, yeah, I guess we get to see, like, I don't think he's going to go Ghost Tank Liberator. I mean, I guess he could, but I think he's going to have to really think more about which units he wants to have here. Is he going to have the Liberators for the quick repositioning and flying aspects, or will he actually stay on the siege tanks with Ghosts, or will he just die right now?
Yeah, well, the Banes are going to come in here right now. I think he can easily take out that Planetary as well, and the position has been shattered. This may be the final few moments of this game. I don't think there's any way for Coffee to recover. GG! Serral takes it in an impressive 3-0 victory. 3 very clear and decisive wins from Serral. A result that we expected. It's unsurprising. I think Coffee, look, he played well. He had his moments, but clearly he was deficient.